Hi, I'm Chris Sarandon, and welcome to Cooking by Heart, where we revisit the vivid memories of the food we grew up with and the people and the stories attached to that time in our lives. Today, I'm proud to have as my guest, Alex Vincent. Alex is a professional actor, writer, and audio engineer based in Tampa, Florida. Over the past 35 years, Alex has mostly been known for his recurring role as the legacy character, Andy Barkley, from the Chucky Child's Play franchise of movies, having portrayed this traumatized character in 4 films and in seasons 1 and 2 of the Chucky TV series. For his work in the original Child's Play, he received a nomination for a Saturn Award for Best Juvenile Performance. He's been appearing as a fan favorite at horror conventions and personal appearances for the last 20 years and is currently the owner of AV Productions Recording Studio in Clearwater, Florida. Welcome, Andy. I want to call you Andy, but you're not. You're Alex.
I'm quite used to being called Andy.
I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are. Well, welcome. One of the things I like to start off with always in these shows is where we're from, because it has so much to do with the family, with food, not only the native food of where you're from, but also what your family was like, where you were when you moved, etc. So let's talk about that first. You were born in Newark, but were raised where?
I was actually not born in Newark.
Oh, you weren't?
I was born in Wayne. It said Newark on IMDb, like always, one of the many things that
you can't correct.
Then it goes to Wikipedia, and then it goes everywhere, and it's Newark forever.
Yeah.
But I think my mother was born in Newark, actually. But I was born in Wayne General in North Jersey, Bergen County.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where I grew up. I grew up in a really small town called Maywood, which bordered Hackensack. This was a really small town, 1 square mile. Had no high school. I went to Hackensack for high school. But yeah, grew up in an Italian North Jersey family.
Right. I noticed that your non movie name is very Italian.
Yeah, Lo Scialpo. I was named after my grandfather, Alejandro Vincenzo Lo Scialpo.
Oh, that's a goodie, man. That's a beautiful name. Beautiful name.
If I ever get into painting or something, maybe I'll use that.
Right. Exactly. Well, you're an artist. You can do whatever you want to do with your name. So tell me a little bit about home life. What it was like when you were growing up, mom and dad.
Yeah, mom and dad were together right until Child's Play. Right until soon after Child's Play 1. But it was my mom, my dad, my older half brother, which was my mother's son, Derek, lived in the house. My older sister, Lara, which is my half brother on my dad's side, lived with us briefly, but was always around. And then my sister, Ashley, who you've met, on set, was always there, came with us to California. Who was 3 years younger than me. But yeah, we grew up in a very, lower middle class, I suppose, house in a small, quaint suburban town. We lived right next door to the police station.
Lucky boy. Or unlucky, depending on the circumstances.
Well, I was lucky till I was a teenager.
Right.
No, I was. It was a really small little brick, nice, cool, old feel building. And then over the years that we lived there, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and pushed us pretty much off the street.
Right. Which is the kind of ubiquitous story of many small towns in America.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't actually take over our property. The house is still there, but it just became a massive thing shadowing over our house.
Mm-hmm. And tell me about life at home before you became Andy Barkley.
I don't remember too much before. I was only 6 when we started all that.
Yeah,
but,
true.
But it was a happy home. My parents started to argue quite a bit in my earliest memories, so there was some stress there. But we still had really nice Christmases and holidays and Sunday sauce and
What was it like, sort of daily around the table? Did mom cook? Did mom work?
My mom cooked, and she was cutting hair She worked at a hair salon part time, and then she actually moved that into the back of our house, where she had a sink and like her own
Right,
setup in the
right.
back of our house, and she would do haircuts there. But she was a mother. That was really her job. Uh,
Good cook?
Very good cook. My whole family. I mean, we're Italian, and we're all pretty proud of our ability to cook.
Yeah, yeah.
The tomato sauce, it was never gravy in my family.
Ah, I've
But
had that
so,
conversation with a couple of my guests because
yeah,
Adriana Trajani, whose family's from parts from the north, parts from the south, and then also John Sebastian, and they both describe tomato sauce differently.
yeah, yeah,
John refused to discuss it as gravy, whereas
yeah,
Adriana, it was gravy all the time.
yeah. And I don't think any either makes you more Italian. It's just a different
Yeah.
feeling, I guess. But Sunday sauce was a big thing, a big unifier in my family, in both my small, my immediate family, and also all the other cousins and
Right.
grandparents. It started with my grandfather's sauce, and
So it came down
father
from
too. But
came
yeah,
down from grandpa.
my grandmother on my mother's side was 100% Irish. My grandfather was 100% Italian.
Ah,
Uh, so yeah, it was all my grandfather's recipe and his family's recipe, and then my mother made it fantastically, and then I make it pretty excellently too, I must say.
all right.
Yeah, I have a little video on Instagram of how I make it with a couple little family secrets. But yeah, it has the pork that has been cooking in the sauce all day long and falls apart, meatballs, sausage, hot and sweet, and yeah, yeah, that's always been our favorite meal, and kind of like when we know we're really celebrating, there's a pot of sauce being made.
Do you still get together and do it?
Yeah, sure. We're going to. My mother's making the sauce for Christmas, no doubt. Christmas, usually she'll make. It depends. Different type of pasta. It depends. Sometimes it's like a ziti. Sometimes we'll do something else, and she'll make manigot or something like that. Or stuffed shells. Stuffed shells is really the big one. Those big
Oh,
jumbo sized shells, stuffed
yeah,
shells
yeah.
with regot cheese, and uh, yeah, yeah. It's really feels like family.
That's the traditional family celebratory meal.
Definitely.
Be it Christmas,
Or
any
any time.
holiday, any holiday.
Any holiday, a different type of pasta might be involved with that sauce. But we have a couple other ones too. Like, for some reason, we've always had lox and bagels on Christmas morning,
Oh,
our whole
very,
life.
very Italian.
Yeah, yeah. Lox and bagels with capers and cream cheese
Oh,
and red onion.
mm-hmm.
Still like one of my favorite things to ever have for breakfast. And
Me
and
too.
I lived in North Jersey, where the bread is the best in the world. That's not even an argument. Even better than Italy. The bread is just perfect in New York, New Jersey.
To what do you attribute? Do you have a theory?
Well, I mean, I was delivering freshly baked bread in the mornings up there for like a couple years for a company called Grateful Bread, and I'll
Artisan, artisan bakery, or
yeah, no, it was more like Kaiser rolls and hot dog
okay,
rolls and
yeah.
hamburger rolls that I was bringing to those spots. But yeah, it would be rolls, like fresh sandwich rolls, and I couldn't stop eating them first thing in the morning. I don't know, it's the density, it's the flavor of the bread for sure, but it's just like the density, like a bagel. If you get a bagel in North Jersey, you can't get a bagel like that anywhere else. It just doesn't. It's not as crispy like that. It doesn't. It's not as. I mean, your jaw gets tired eating one of those
Yes,
bagels.
right. They do have a
Yeah,
major kind of consistency that's very
yeah.
uniform. But now better than New York City bagels?
Comparable. I mean,
Okay.
I grew up 7 miles from New York City, so it's the same.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
basically the
Okay.
same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I did a lot of cross-pollination. I know. I
yeah,
we did one episode with my kids where they were talking about when they were young. Now they're grown, obviously, they're your age.
yeah.
Growing up in the city and remembering going to Zabar's and picking up lox or smoked salmon and capers, and then going to H&H Bagels, which was across the street from Zabar's at the time.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah, perfect stuff, wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, so here we are in New Jersey in the 1980s.
Yeah.
As you're growing up. You were
Yep.
born in what, 80?
81.
81, 82. I was thinking 81 or 82.
Andy was 82. I was 81. But yeah, I started auditioning in New York City when I was 5. I saw a girl who lived down the street from me do a commercial, and I saw her on TV, someone that I knew in person.
Right.
So then I just started auditioning for things, and my family was, my dad was a private detective.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he was busy most times and not available to drive me into New York City. So most time it was my mom, but my dad did drive me.
Yeah,
plenty of times. And yeah, I think about a couple things about that are unique. But like soon after I got Child's Play, like around 7, 8 years old, she would just drop me off, and I would go up to the thing and sign myself in and sit there and do the audition myself, because parking was it's an extra $45 to park.
Ridiculous. Ridiculous in New York City. Yeah. But let me just digress just for a moment.
Yeah.
Because I want to hear a little more about what it was like around the dinner table, because you had a step sibling and an older sibling. Is that right?
I did. Well, my older sister Lara, who was my dad's daughter.
Right, I remember Lara.
She didn't live with us. All but for like maybe a year. I think there was like a year where she lived with us. But
what was it like around the table? What was the conversation like?
Yeah, it was talkative. It was really like my mother and father both had rather traditional family values. So of course there weren't cell phones there, but if there were, we wouldn't have been able to have them there.
Oh, you're kidding?
Yeah. No, there was no TV.
They'd have gone flying across the room.
Yeah. There was no TV. It was just, it was really, how's your day? I mean, my mother was pretty big on like sharing and talking with each other as much as we could. So yeah, the conversations were like, what's going on in school? What did you do? How you, yeah, stuff like that. I had an older brother, Derek, who lived with us, and you probably met Derek too, actually. But Derek was 9 years older than me, so I think he was a little more difficult to rein in for dinners at that point, because he was a teenager, and but it was he was there plenty also. And my sister Ashley, who was my age, her and I were really raised like as a pair. We were three years apart, but we were pretty much a pair.
Right. And were you was the town small enough when you were going to elementary school? There was an elementary school in Maywood?
Yeah, kindergarten to 8th grade. I went to Catholic school for kindergarten, and then decided promptly that wasn't for me. And I went to the public school there. There was one school on one side of town for 1st grade through 3rd grade, and then another side, 4th grade to 8th grade. And
middle school.
Yeah, middle school,
more or less.
including 4th and 5th grade.
Yeah.
And yeah, starting in 4th grade, or maybe it was 5th, but 5th grade, when it was lunchtime, they would just let us out. We would walk uptown. We would just go walk through the town to wherever we wanted to get food and come back. I mean, there's no way they're doing that nowadays.
No.
Letting 5th graders out, just out and about. Oh, it's your hour to go do what you want.
Right. So mom gave you lunch money?
Yeah, she would usually give me lunch money. There was a time where I would bring stuff, but that wasn't cool because I didn't want to spend time in the cafeteria once you can go out.
Right.
Yeah, I would. She would bring me lunch money. I was trying to work a lot when I was a kid, one way or another. Like I was always up to something that was making me some money, one way or another. Like whether I was buying and selling baseball cards or convincing the baseball card shop to let me help them for like a few dollars under the table. Or then I started working in a pizza place when I was like 13. So yeah, I always tried to make my own money too. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Junior
I had allowance and
entrepreneur.
stuff. Yeah, and I had an allowance and stuff for a little while. Um, yeah.
Any other particular memories of things that were favorites of yours that you would request that mom would make, or snacks? I mean,
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
have a vivid memory of coming home every day after school and making myself a snack, and I had a sort of lineup of things that I would eat. Anything like
Yeah.
that?
Well, one of the things that I would ask for all the time were frites, which are like zeppelis, but with tomato sauce on them instead. It's just like fried dough.
Ah,
I also was really dear friends with a kid growing up who was Hungarian, and I spent a lot of time at his house, and
ah,
they made the same thing that are frites really, but they would just rub garlic on them and salt, and they called them langos. And then if you go to the fair, they put powdered sugar on it and call it zeppelis, but it's all the same shit.
so
Uh,
it's basically fried dough.
yeah, it's just fried dough.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was one of my favorites that I would have coming home. And she would make a few things. She'd make like little shells with peas. It was like a butter sauce, like
Ooh.
little pasta shells with fresh green beans. Or no, not green beans, but peas, fresh peas in there. And yeah, that was always a little tasty treat.
Hmm.
I always remember my mother having a large glass of Diet Coke with a ton of ice in it, and I wasn't like I wasn't limited on drinking soda, but I never really poured it for myself. But hers, that was really ice cold, was always
Hmm.
fun to steal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I
And,
remember.
and was her approach, because I know I've spoken to some people who, a lot of folks who grew up with basically sort of meat and potatoes and overcooked vegetables.
Yeah,
Was there a sense of freshness? Because I know that Italians, as do Greeks, by the
yeah,
way,
yeah,
put a premium on salad, fresh vegetables, cooked in their own way, obviously.
yeah.
But
Definitely. There was always salad there. My mother grew a lot of things too, and would
she had a garden.
she didn't have like a massive garden, but she did grow a lot of like all of our like parsley she would put and stuff she'd always get from the yard, and basil and um oregano too. And yeah, she was always kind of growing things like that. But yeah, there was a salad with most meals. I always had to be convinced to eat it, but there were always vegetables. And yeah, always really fresh stuff. We had a couple really good markets. One that has turned into like the supermarket in that area. Like, and
Hmm.
I don't even mean a supermarket, but I mean a super little market.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
yeah, Maywood Marketplace. It's really like taken over. People come from all over to go there. So our town kind of cared about freshness and food too. Growing up.
Was the town an ethnic town?
No,
Well,
our town was a
mixed.
very no. It was pretty white.
Oh, really?
Maywood
Yeah, mine too.
was
Yeah.
super white. Yeah, but all the towns surrounding us, Hackensack was very mixed ethnically, and then then we lived near Patterson and Jersey City and right over the bridge. So yeah, when I went to high school, it was a total mix of all cultures, which was great. I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
that. We all love that. Like we were all happy to be there after spending all that time in Maywood. Like we were happy. We were happy to meet. Maywood
Yeah.
was beautiful, but yeah, a little multiculturalism was
Yeah, yeah.
helpful.
I understand. I understand. So we're back now. We're back now with mom parked, or sorry, driving around the streets while you're auditioning. You're going in and signing.
In the city, she would let me out at for auditions, and I would just go up there, 8 year old, like in New York City, just let
Yeah.
myself up to these buildings and sign in and audition, and then come down and wait for her. you know,
Right.
but it was not
When you
something we
could.
were. Yeah, wherever I could. Yeah, it's not something we thought was strange at the time. But that's just how it was back then, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, I did a couple like print jobs, and I did a couple commercials, and I was on like As the World Turns for like 2 weeks, and then I booked Child's Play 1. And that was kind of changed everything at the time because we had never flown out for anything at all. They flew me there for the final.
Right.
They flew me there for my last audition, and then we got it in. As far as I remember, we started in Chicago, right?
Oh boy.
Finished in California.
Yeah.
It was the most freezing winter of all time.
It was miserable. It was one of the coldest experiences of my life.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a town 2,500 feet above sea level where we had, 3-4 foot snowstorms. Yeah. And going to school in the morning sometimes when it was below zero. So I was not exactly afraid of the cold. And boy, Chicago sure cured me of that.
Yeah.
Very fearful.
Yeah.
So tell me, I remember very vividly the first time I met you.
Yeah.
Because I remember you telling me that you had seen Fright Night.
Yeah.
And you were how old at the time?
I was 6. I was 6. And what happened was I had booked the role, and I knew that I would be working with you, and I wanted to see things that you had done. I'm sure I watched something that Catherine was in also. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I watched Fright Night, and I have a memory of seeing it in like a theater setting.
Wow.
I had the VHS. I know that because I'm a big fan of that movie. I have been since I saw it. It was the first horror film that I ever saw. And I was reflecting on that recently. Besides just meeting you, like knowing that I was going to meet you and work with you, and seeing you on screen first and seeing your work. I think I did see A Princess Bride also too, by the way. So you weren't just horrifying Jerry Dandridge. Maybe I saw Princess Bride afterwards.
I think you saw it afterwards.
It was after.
Just the chronology.
In between the films,
Yeah.
But you were nothing like Jerry Dandridge on set, obviously. But I was enamored with the film. Actually, it was the first horror film that I ever saw. And I think it was really helpful because I think it kind of helped explain our objective to me. And it helped me not be afraid of this doll. Not that I think I would have been anyway, because I was enamored by the puppeteer's work and everything like that.
And you saw the inner workings. You didn't see the finished product. Yeah.
As I've been saying, everyone, when the doll stops trying to kill me when we say cut, and we're doing the same thing 40 times in a row.
Right. So it takes the fear out of it.
Yeah, but I still think that it helped me because I remember understanding and even talking with Margaret, my acting coach at the time, about after seeing Fright Night that it was like our job to make the audience scared. So it helped me. Andy had an innocence about him regardless, but it helped me emote fear a little bit and be excited to do that. And I kind of really enjoyed the concept of we're going to scare people with this. And I think seeing Fright Night and then meeting you in person, it just helped me understand kind of what the process of the concept of a horror film was and why it was effective, and how to help keep it effective.
It's interesting that you say that because, I think that I have grown to appreciate more as I'm now a grandfather at how totally immersed children can be in something that should be frightening on the one hand, but on the other hand is very alluring. They find just that you can't look away, which is the sort of hallmark of all great horror movies. It's interesting that you had to me at the time, you had such a presence about you and seemingly self-confident. I don't know if that's the way you felt, and I'm wondering where that came from.
I don't know. I was very confident then. Honestly, after Child's Play 2, when I ultimately decided to stop acting, that's what really fell apart for me was my confidence. But it definitely helped me in the beginning of that. I don't know. I was a smart kid. I felt smart.
Yeah. It was obvious you were very smart.
Yeah, I mean, I taught myself how to read kind of with that Child's Play 1 script. I memorized all the lines, everybody's lines, even all of your lines.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
I barely knew my line.
Yeah, yeah. Until Tom made revisions on it, and then I broke down crying that all my hard work
Oh,
was for
really?
not. Yeah, yeah. But so I wasn't that tough. But yeah, I felt comfortable there too. I think that really was a big help. Tom has a reputation of on that particular experience being abrasive, and I remember some of that as well. But he was also comforting, and so was everyone else there. Especially, you and Catherine and Margaret, my acting coach, really, really made it. Gave me confidence. Margaret was really, really helpful, and was in part 2 also.
I had kids. So
And they were there on set, and I remember
Yeah.
them, and I remember
Yeah.
going in the trailer. Yeah, I have memories of that.
Yeah. And it was always interesting to me that you managed to have that kind of self-confidence and feel like that you belonged. You seemed to belong from the first day, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you were still a kid.
Yeah,
I never had a sense that you were being forced into a persona that was not, childlike.
right. And also not being forced into the whole idea of being an actor. It was my idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
It genuinely was my idea. I remember having the idea.
Tell me about having the idea. What was the attraction? Do you remember?
I just thought it was super cool that Sarah Maylett was on TV. It was my neighbor. It was a person that I knew. And I thought it was super cool that she was on TV. And I also really loved stories and television and movies, like right from super early age.
Right.
I started writing my own little books and stories, and yeah, I just I don't know. I connected to the idea of making people happy by being on television. I felt like it makes people happy. Like it made me happy to see someone I knew on there.
Right, right.
All these shows that I were watching were really making. I was a big fan of like Back to the Future, and Michael J. Fox I thought was the coolest guy in the world. And,
Well, he was.
He was. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure he still is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it just seemed fun to me. The whole thing seemed fun. And that's why I was comfortable on set, and that's why we were happy to be there. And
you don't have, and your mom, you don't, the sense that I get from you is that your mother was not a stage mother in that she was pushing you all the time.
Yeah, and she was clueless about what to do as someone in that position. Yeah, my manager Sue from Suzelle Enterprises, which was really popular for kids at that time in New York. Had to tell us everything, how to do everything. We had no idea. We didn't grow up in a family like that. We never moved to LA. We learned as we went for sure. But no, we had no idea what we were doing in the beginning of that. And I wasn't really into plays either. Like it's not like I was doing all the plays in school. I didn't have that. It actually worked differently for me because I was so young. I think I did like, kindergarten plays and stuff like that. But like when I made Child's Play 1 in first grade and I came back, I don't know, the kids weren't all that excited about it, so I didn't want to talk about it. It just seemed annoying, and because of that feeling, and then that was compounded by the second film and all that stuff and my decision to stop acting. But yeah, I never wanted to I couldn't do it. I felt like there was too much pressure on me if I were to do it. I was like an actor in a major film, and then to come back and then do the 8th grade play felt like I couldn't do it, and I shouldn't do it.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about this decision you made to stop with the second one. What happened?
Well, it was after Child's Play 2. Child's Play 2 came out, and it was really, really great, and that was an incredible experience. Universal Studios, and I got to sit with Michael J. Fox in his trailer and have lunch with him,
wow!
and sit in the actual DeLorean and walk through the set and everything. So that all was great, and then I came back from that, and horror movies, especially in the '80s, were not a prestigious
No, it's changed.
piece of your resume. That's changed entirely. But at the time, I think that was a factor. I know when they made the decision to not have Andy, or to recast Andy as a 16-year-old in Child's Play 3, I took that really hard. Because
You were how old at the time?
I was 9, maybe, when I got that news.
Mm-hmm. And it didn't compute that they'd changed the chronology, and so you weren't suited for the role. It was more a personal. You took it as a personal affront.
I wasn't sure, honestly. I knew that they were changing the story. I got that, but
Right.
I'm sure I felt somehow at fault for it. I felt at fault for a lot of things. My parents got divorced after Child's Play. My brother got, a little envious. My sister felt ignored.
Mm-hmm.
It affected my family in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
and you think that it had a direct effect on your family, the fact that you had been involved in the two pictures?
Sure. I mean, I don't think it's far from the only factor. Obviously,
right.
It wasn't
much more complicated.
It wasn't the thing, but yeah, there was a sense of that. There were arguments over things regarding that and the travel associated to it and the auditions, and also they took very different positions in how they dealt with it. I feel like my father was overly proud. I know he was overly proud. Would tell everybody, tell the waiter, would tell the cashier, always having me sign things for people and stuff. And my mother couldn't stand that he was doing that, and didn't like how I was potentially developing some sort of arrogance about myself because of it. So she would just kind of shut it down in rather harsh terms.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at times. Yeah.
You mean in public?
No, I mean just to me, like she was just trying to keep me humble. Honestly,
Of course,
is really what she was doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
As she should. And, and it was really helpful, and it's led to a lot of balance in my life having both of those. But it was also a conflict of emotions regarding the whole thing.
Yeah.
That, and also then yeah, like I said, you start losing confidence. I think getting replaced, but in the Chucky thing, I lost some confidence. I also, maybe because of all of these factors and not enjoying the attention that I was getting for it. Yeah, because when my father would do that, it would piss me off. Like, I didn't like attention. I didn't like. Yeah, I wasn't the person to be like, "Hey, you ever see the Chucky movies?" Like, I did not want to talk about it. In high school, it was really known not to talk to me about it because I would be a horrible asshole to you if you weren't.
Really?
If you did.
Really?
Yeah, I had an attitude about the whole thing for a while.
And that came from, that's not who I am.
Yeah, pretty much. And I had left. I had really no intentions of acting anymore at all. So I wanted to be someone different and be able to be someone different and not have everything tied into being Andy. Now, I say this, by the way, these were feelings that I had when I was, 12 years old to 17-ish. But a few years after that, like it took doing one convention and seeing how happy we've made people with this work. Yeah. That gave me an entirely new appreciation for all of it. And now I'm nothing but grateful and thankful for all of it. But it took a long time to get there. It took a lot of work to get there.
But you did then subsequently do more Child's Play films, more Chucky films.
Yeah. Well.
So what happened?
Basically, after I stopped auditioning altogether. I did nothing for years. Then in my early 20s, a couple independent things offered me little tiny roles, like, and I did that. Um, I wrote a film for these guys over here, and they convinced me to act in it, and it was a leading role in that, even though it was a small, no budget thing. But I did realize that I enjoy it. You know, between action and cut, I really enjoy acting. It's everything else. It's everything else. Especially like the negotiation side of things, like that. I just hate that so much.
Well, because it's so tied up with our self-worth.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's your self-worth is sometimes used against you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So anyways, but what happened was, you know, when I was a kid, in Child's Play 2, I thought Don Mancini was just the coolest guy in the world. I've said it many times, but like, yeah, he took me out to the movies. He had a blue Alfa Romeo. He was a writer. He was just a really, I just thought he was the coolest guy. So when I was able to like reconnect with him, probably around like 2009, 2010, something like that, we stayed loosely in contact, and then he got the green light that he was going to make this Curse of Chucky, and he called me and said, so I want to bring Andy back in a cameo at the end of the film. Mm-hmm. And despite any apprehensive feelings I had about being an actor again, and just even like simple things like the weight I would have to lose to do that, and like, you know, I don't even have headshots. I really was not expecting to be on TV at all, or in film or anything like that. So despite any of that apprehension, though, I didn't think twice. I just like, yeah, definitely, that sounds way too fun. I would love to.
Yeah.
Because after Child's Play 3, mind you, know, I did have to just kind of be a regular guy, so to speak. I'm still a regular guy, but I had to just live a regular life outside of all of that. Well, Bride of Chucky came out and was a big hit, and Seed of Chucky came out, and I thought was a super fun film. And so yeah, so by the time Curse rolled around, I was chomping at the bit to be back involved. So Don just called me and asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was very excited to. Went to Winnipeg for one day. Ooh. and shot it.
I hope not in the winter.
So that was in the summer, but a couple 4 years later, Cult of Chucky was all in January, February, and it rivaled Chicago.
Really? Oh yeah, I hear Winnipeg is
45 degrees below zero and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, it was insane.
Yeah.
Frostbite in minutes. It was, and how crazy is that? Now this is 2017, literally 30 years after filming Child's Play 1, and here I am playing Andy Barkley in the freezing cold again. It was pretty wild.
Yeah.
And it remains wild. I mean, the fact that I've been able to be a part of these past 2 seasons of this TV series when I don't do any other acting. My acting coach from when I was a kid is now my manager, and I sent out the first 2 auditions that I've done in 25 years or whatever. Wow. Earlier this year, which was really just practice to kind of
it's good.
Yeah, and it was fun. And
I find interesting though that you are part of a tradition of filmmaking that it has been used by other directors. There's the Richard Linklater Boyhood film that shoots over a period of, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 years, somewhere in there. I'm not sure exactly. Yeah. With the same character. There's the Truffaut movies, starting with 400 Blows, where Jean-Pierre Léaud, he ages as the films progress, for obvious reasons, but also because that's part of the schematic. But these films were not necessarily created around you.
No.
But at the same time, you have reappeared, and particularly for those who listen to my podcast who are not familiar with the whole of the Child Play series. Sure. Can you explain how the character progressed and how your approach changed along the way, how it affected you?
Yeah, definitely. Andy Barkley and I have several parallels. For one thing, I mean, my earliest memories are of Chucky. Also, um, for some of the reasons that I explained earlier about the effect on my life that it had, Chucky kind of was like over my shoulder, like similarly to how he affected Andy Barkley. He didn't murder anybody that I knew and loved.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to kill me, at least not literally. Uh,
But his
so
influence, his influence was
his
definitely
influence
there.
was heavy,
Yeah,
heavy,
yeah.
heavy in my life. So part one, after part one, his family gets taken away from him, and he's in foster care, and he's already rather traumatized. But the events of that, I think, really left him with like full blown PTSD, and Child's Play 3, he's in military school, and it was played by a different actor. And I'll be honest, I took none of his progression from that into what I did in
Good.
Curse of Chucky.
Yeah.
Like, none at all. No, because the way I saw it with Curse, and I really was happy to explore it in Cult, because that's kind of what I wanted. That he told Don. So, is that, yeah, the trauma, the PTSD of surviving something like that, and the obsession that was created because of it. Because that's really where Andy was when we find him in Curse of Chucky, even though it's not too revealed until Cult of Chucky, that he's been obsessed with this his whole life. He knew Chucky would be back. He knew he was never dead. I mean, it even goes back in my mind to that still frame ending of Child's Play 1 with Andy's face in the doorway. Everything that says to me is Andy knows this isn't over. And it's a funny one-liner to say, but Chucky's been saying we're friends to the end, and he wasn't bullshitting. Like this will not end.
Yeah.
Chucky always comes back, and thankfully, the fans are still excited by me, the original protagonist, coming back to play this character over and over again. Because I've played him 6 times now, from the time I was 8 until 41.
Which is extraordinary. Extraordinary.
Yeah, I don't know many people who have gotten an opportunity to do that.
The only ones I can think of are these films that I mentioned. I'm sure there are more, but
it's an incredible opportunity, made even more impactful to me in my life based on the fact that I've been doing these conventions for 20 years, and I've met. I mean, I know you've done a lot of conventions. I've done them with you. Brad does plenty of them. But I mean,
this is Brad Dourif.
Brad Dourif,
yeah. the voice of Chucky, and the original Charles Lee Ray in the very first movie. Yeah,
fantastic actor.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so we've all experienced this, but I've met so many Chucky fans over the years, like so many. And for me, especially, being that this is the only thing I'm known for, my connection with everyone who comes up to me is over that one movie. For someone like you and Brad, there's a ton of films that have impacted people and that they want to talk to you about. But for me, it's always Andy Barkley. It's always this character. So my connection to a couple 100,000 people that I've probably met, it really makes. Not only does it make it the responsibility of this character a little intense for me, but it makes my appreciation for the fact that I get to keep doing this all the more strengthened and valid and rewarding, and it helps with my gratitude a great deal.
I feel very much the same way, not in the particular way that you're talking about, but just in general, because I talk about this often, that and I have a background in theater, so I have experience with audience exchange, with the sense that the audience is part of the performance. But with films and television, you don't have that sense when you're on the set. And it's one of the great gifts that doing these conventions has given me, which is to give me the sense of what the audience's experience is like doing them. And it's not that I necessarily personally feel responsible for their love of and fealty to these films, as much as it is I feel proud and humbled by the fact that I'm part of that experience.
Yes. Yeah, of course. I mean, both are true to a degree. That you have played some characters in films that's what people love about the film.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, so there is that beauty of having that exchange. And nowadays with social media, obviously, we can experience that a lot more. If you're on a TV show. I mean, I certainly felt at this time like the ride of watching it with fans and getting all their immediate feedback.
Oh, how cool!
That's something we never had in the past. Before all this, you couldn't do that. But yeah, that would be the closest thing. I only did a couple plays in my whole life, and I was little walk-in roles on that. I think A Christmas Carol, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, maybe one or two more. But and they were really brief runs. I didn't really experience that. But I am envious of that feeling. That must be such a instantly gratifying, incredible feeling.
Yeah, it's really extraordinary. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm also interested in, as you're describing your journey through Andy in all these movies, that how the parallel with your life has manifested itself, in a very sort of specific way, and how, for want of a better way of describing it, how inextricably bound you and the character are.
Yeah.
And the influence of this non-existent being, Chucky, who doesn't exist in reality, has been a part of your life for so long.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. He's a little more real than than people realize. but point taken. I think that the influence that Andy has had on me, the parallels of Chucky over my shoulder, so to speak. I don't want to say that they're all negative, because they're really not all negative. It's a balance. I mean, it is such a balance. But as someone who's started writing poetry and song lyrics when I was in like 5th, 6th grade, and have published 6 poetry books, and I went to school for audio, and I have recorded and mixed and mastered over 300 artist projects in the 8 years I've had this studio. And for any kind of creative endeavor that I have, for a very long time, it felt like underappreciated, like no one's gonna care. And the beginning of social media actually made that feeling all the more discouraging, is because I would put something out there and I'd get more than half silly Chucky Andy responses to it. And that just kind of told me what I always felt all along, was that they just care about this character. It's not really anything else that I do. Nothing will ever live up to this character to people.
So the curse of Chucky is real.
The curse of Chucky's real. So is the cult, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, the curse of Chucky did feel real to me. Now, I would say it's truthfully as abstract as this imaginary character is, because it's a situation of my own making. I think it stifles my creativity a great deal. It has damaged my confidence in a lot of ways. But there are times that I get it back, and I've still have put things out there. I still have intentions of putting a lot more out there.
Well, it's one of the things that, as I read your introduction, that I thought, good for you, and I don't mean this in a condescending way.
Yeah.
I mean, good that you have remained an artist, as a writer, as a sound engineer, that you have other creative outlets. It's one of the reasons I'm doing the podcast.
Yeah.
Is that creative urge has to have some outlet, or you will end up like any number of people who have gone through the show business gauntlet and have come out highly affected and discouraged and non-functioning as a human being.
Yeah,
And
let alone an artist. Yeah,
yeah, and one of the senses that I've always had when I meet you at the cons, and that's the way we've stayed in touch over all these years, is that I've always had a sense that you are a young man and now a man moving into full manhood, who is fully formed. That there's not this sense of this defeated, frustrated show business a person who started out very young and then ended up the worse for it. I think that you've become a much more rounded human being and an interesting guy as I've known you over the years. And I think you should take that as a not necessarily just because it's from me a compliment, but the fact that you've accomplished a lot, and it's not just about Child's Play.
Well, it does mean a lot to hear that from anyone, but it certainly means a lot from you as well, especially because I do think that my mother did a lot right. My parents did a lot right.
Yeah.
I think Don has said that to me on multiple occasions also. And just being humbled by maybe my mother's influence to a bit, but even just the experience, I think was humbling. And remember, I waited tables for 17 years. I delivered bread. I umpired softball.
Yeah.
I worked at pizza places. I delivered pizza. I made pizza. I answered phones.
You've had a life.
I have. Yeah, I have. And I think that the travel and meeting so many people has a big impact on your ability to understand yourself and the world around you.
Absolutely.
I think that's been a very interesting blessing in my life. That I mean, I really, really am thankful for all of this. And even though I woe is me about things because there's balance in life. I have to do that sometimes just to kind of, not feel overappreciated and not feel like I can do anything or any, you can't feel that way. You really need to bring yourself down a peg or two sometimes also.
Yeah.
I'm a very reflective person. It comes with being a poet, I suppose, but I'm very reflective of my life, I think, incessantly. And and yeah, it's helped me find balance in life. It's helped me find appreciation and acceptance, and whereas like the Chucky thing for years was something that I didn't want to talk about or ran from, and it's not just because I've found ways to make money with it in my life, but I fully have embraced it over these years, to a point where I'm so proud of it. I feel blessed that Chucky's caught on the way he has for so many people, and I also feel tremendous and support and a sense of joy to be with this Chucky family for so long. Because that's also a really rare thing, it going back all the way to the first film and then scooping up people along the way, all the way until now. And these are all people that I admire and that have been impactful in my life. And I'm just proud to be in this family.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't conclude with the same thing I conclude with all my guests. And that is, if there's one meal or one food experience or one event that had to do with food that's indelible in your mind from when you were a kid, is there something that you would? Even if it's not necessarily a meal at home or whatever, but something that happened that you associate, as we do sometimes with music or whatever.
There are plenty of home cooked meal stories, I'm sure, but I found a love for sushi when I was young, really young.
Oh yeah, how young?
Yeah, 6, 7.
Oh, wow.
Well, I was a movie star.
Yeah.
I liked caviar and sushi. So yeah, I remember a party at the Ruins in California that Margaret hosted. I don't know if you remember Margaret and Harvey, her husband Harvey, who is in the Mighty Echoes, a doo-wop group that's real popular. She's a manager in LA now. She ended up managing Catherine for 30 years or something like that.
What's Margaret's full name?
Margaret Pollock.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember a party that she had there and them serving like sushi and caviar. And it wasn't just like, I guess it was kind of like a feeling of, not that because it's expensive food, but just that it like accepted by people. Like the fact that I was there at that party made me feel kind of accepted by the cool kids. It felt like is really the way I could describe it. And it yeah, it just, I don't know, sushi dinners in general I get excited about. It's like my favorite food. It's where I go for my birthday every year. I'll go out to a sushi restaurant. But yeah, that particular time having like a buffet of seafood and caviar and stuff up on the Ruins. I remember, yeah, really well.
That's a vivid memory.
Yeah, and it's a super cool one. Margaret is my manager to this day, and just part of the extension of this family. So, and I would also have to say, in the same vein as that, is all the dinners that we go out to in Toronto with Jennifer Tilly and Don, and
this is for the TV series
Fiona. Yeah, they're really memorable. It's not just because Jennifer Tilly's picking up the tab, which is a cool thing, but yeah, it's time with family. It's the same exact concept as Sunday sauce. These are people that have been in my life since my earliest memories. And Christine, who's like one of my best friends. So yeah, we're due for a dinner, is what I'm saying.
Okay, it's a deal. It's a deal. All right. Alex Vincent, thank you so much for contributing not only your memories about working as a boy and working through your career, but also just a wonderful kind of heartening look for me at what an extraordinary man you've become since I've known you for just such a long time. So,
thank you so much.
All right. And thank you for being with me.
Absolutely.
And I thank everybody out there for listening and or watching. Take care. This is Cooking by Heart with Chris Sarandon and Alex Vincent.